Our chief political correspondent Vicky Young, along with the senior political reporter at BuzzFeed, Emily Ashton, and the Guardian's Raphael Baer. Thank you all for coming in. Let's just start with that row today about what Nick Clegg told one of his closest advisers, that David Cameron, before the campaign started, admitted he couldn't win a majority. I mean, was it leaked by Nick Clegg? I mean,
I don't doubt that it's true, for a start. I mean, because actually Conservatives, most Conservatives have been saying privately for quite a long time it will be very difficult to win a majority. They think they've got quite strong arguments on the economy. They were hoping that Miliband would falter more in the campaign. But when you actually get the map of the country out, look at the constituencies and start pointing at the seats that the Conservatives have to win to get a majority while holding on to every single vote in every single seat they got last time, it just doesn't add up. So I think Nick Clegg, what he was saying, I'm sure is true. The interesting thing is that he said it out loud.
Well, yeah,
obviously quite a provocative move.
And they said a big fat fib, I think was the word.
Yeah, it was
the phrase,
yeah,
wasn't it? And said that every Tory you speak to privately admits the same thing. Emily, though, how damaging is this potentially? I mean, they need what, 373, don't they, to get 323, sorry, to get the majority.
Yeah.
So I mean, how damaging potentially is this?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're after every vote they can get, and maybe senior Tories have been saying this privately. Maybe even David Cameron has said this privately, but he does not want this to be aired to the nation that he's not confident of getting majority, because some people might think, well, all right, well, I'll just vote another way then. If you're not going to get a majority, maybe I won't bother.
Yeah.
He wants to say to people, look, I could cross the finishing line here. Lend me your votes. We're really close. So no doubt that's why he's gone on the offensive today.
And also it's this ongoing thing for Nick Clegg of trying to make himself relevant in a campaign where it really hasn't been about the Lib Dems. It's been about Labour, Tories, and obviously quite a lot about Scotland.
Yeah.
And it's been quite hard for the Lib Dems to just get in there. And this is a way of saying, look, Nick Clegg still matter because there might still be another coalition.
And just briefly, we're going to hear that slot. 57 MPs in 2010 for the Lib Dems, but the polls suggesting it's going to be a lot worse this time.
Yeah, but I mean, they're obviously focusing very much, targeting really closely, and actually it could be that if they get 30, that might maybe hold the balance of power. And their point is that maybe that doesn't matter, and they want to be relevant, like you say. So the thing they need is a hung parliament for their only chance of getting into power.
Let's listen to what Paul Scrim and Lord Scrim said today on the Victoria Derbyshire programme.
But you're saying Nick Clegg said to you that Mr Cameron privately said to Mr Clegg, Nick, we're clearly not going to win a majority.
I don't take back anything I said in the tweet.
When did he say that to you?
He said that towards the end of the Parliament, just before Parliament closed.
Right, OK. So longer than 5 weeks or so ago. OK.
Right, so that's the Scriven row, none of them resigning from what they said at the time. We've also had Leanne Wood coming out today saying that nobody should take for granted, well, Labour should take for granted who she's going to join. But, I mean, how ambitious is that from her, actually?
Yeah, I mean, I think she thinks that Ed Miliband would just take for granted that Plaid Cymru are there for support. But she's actually saying, well, we're here, but, you're going to have to give us something in return. I think that's what she was trying to make clear today. And, the smaller parties will all want a chunk of everything that
and so many red lines. It's almost like a sort of a completely covered canvas, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Plaid will not be in the business of propping up a Tory administration much more than Nicola Sturgeon and the SNP will be, but they'll want something in return. I mean, what's interesting about all of this really is that the combined vote share of the two main parties might not be much more than 2/3. So that's going to be a lot of people who, easily maybe 6 out of 10 voters who will not have voted for the party of the new Prime Minister, whoever that is, and whoever emerges from that is going to have problems with legitimacy, with a mandate, and they have to start speaking out to the people who have voted for these other parties.
Come to you in a minute, Vicky. Let's just listen to what Leanne Wood had to say on the Today programme this morning.
Our votes can't be taken for granted. The Labour Party have taken people for granted in Wales for such a long time, and as a result we've got decline in public services and a neglected economy. We want to do everything we can to form an alternative government to the Tories. We've offered out our hand to Ed Miliband in order to set up that alternative government, and he's arrogantly pushed that hand away. Now, my suspicion is, in the event of a hung parliament on Friday morning, have to speak to someone else because there won't be the numbers there to form a government, and we want to stop another Tory government. He can work with us to do that, and I think he should revise his position.
OK, Vicky, just a brief comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just interesting that they all want to have a say in all of this. They all want to get something out of it, don't they? But it is interesting that the parties are now briefing things, out there, because no matter what they say publicly about winning, in the end, it is looking very much like it will be hung parliament, and, they need to start preparing for that, and of course they are preparing for that behind the scenes.
Well, just on that point, because James Landale, Deputy Political Editor, today, Raphael was talking about, it's being briefed, it seems, from Labour headquarters, that there will be negotiations. But given what the Lib Dems need and are demanding, I mean, where does that take?
Well, that shouldn't be too difficult, because the red lines, as you said, the red lines that the Lib Dems have set out, they're actually quite blurry and soft, and they're things like defending the education budget. Well, the Labour Party's not going to stand up and say, no, we absolutely do not want to defend the education budget. And
although Clegg was, when he was pushed on tuition fees, wouldn't rule out the
money. Well, yeah, that's a particularly
rule out them rising.
Spiky issue for the Lib Dems. I mean, I think the more problematic for the Lib Dems will be they will lose a lot of seats, up to half of the MPs they've got. And the question is, what kind of Lib Dem will be left? Because you have a sort of an old social democratic left of the Liberal Democrat Party. You have quite a sort of Tory-facing liberal, what we call the Orange Book side of the Liberal Democrat Party. And it's not that obvious which contingent will be stronger, and therefore what kind of authority Nick Clegg, if he is still leader of Lib Dems by Friday afternoon, will have to do a deal with Labour. So it won't just be as simple as just sort of a show of hands, right, in we go. The Lib Dems have a process to go through, and it's quite a complicated process. So
and Debbie, you agree with that?
Yes, and there's also a lot of anger from Labour MPs towards Lib Dems, isn't there? I mean, we can't underestimate this. They are furious with the Lib Dems for going into coalition with the Tories and propping them up.
More than some Tory MPs?
Well, I think there are quite a few Tory MPs that feel pretty similar, actually. But also, Nick Clegg it could be a red line for a lot of Labour MPs, and he might have to fall on his sword to join forces with Labour, I would have thought.
All right, OK. All right, well.